Welcome to this quest and very short course about the process of communication. And if you're here, I assume that you might be sharing my fascination for this process and what goes on when we communicate, wondering why sometimes it is so easy and why sometimes it is so hard and why sometimes it goes horribly wrong. We're going to look into all that, and we're also going to look into how to make it easier and how to make it go right a lot more often. When we're born, we start learning to speak very, very soon. And in that process, although we learn how to use our words and how to formulate sentences and to try to get our point across, very rarely are we learning something about the psychology and the process behind what we're actually doing. So what we are learning and how we learn to do it is very much dependent on chance. Like, what people do we have around us? What level of awareness and knowledge do they have? And what are they able to teach us in the process about how to do it? So this thing that we do every day, opening our mouth and producing words and sentences, such a normal activity, is actually a really complicated process that is very, very subtle. And the dynamic that is going on is very often very unconscious for us most of the time. We don't go around every day like thinking about and analyzing the words and the tone of voice and everything that we're doing. But subconsciously, this process is always going on. So right now, I'm going to invite you to come with me on a journey to start making those subtle factors and dynamics more conscious. And we're going to start changing how we think about communication, how you think about talking with other people, and also, important, with yourself. But first of all, let's get into why should you do this? Why is this important? Your mindset about thinking about chatting, talking, speaking, sharing, anything that you do in the circumstance of communication is going to change. Your relationships will get better. You will feel more at peace. You will have fewer conflicts and misunderstandings in your life. And you will be able to separate your responsibility for that of other people. My first challenge to you is to start thinking about communication as a skill, as opposed to something that just happens. And a skill is something that requires knowledge and practice. So to get really good at it, we need to expand our knowledge. We need to practice our skills. We're going to start being more conscious about the whole process, especially in the beginning, because when you're starting to do something that you kind of never done before, or you haven't thought about it before, it's not exactly second nature. So you need to actively, consciously focus on the things that you are doing in order to see what you are doing and what effects the things that you are doing have. So to be able to analyze anything, what we need to do is to dissect the process and divide it into smaller parts. Because if we speak about communication, that's just like this big chunk of everything. And it's very difficult to try and find out what's going on different stages. And the first thing I want to do is look at the definition of communication. Now, there are a variety of definitions out there, but the Oxford Dictionary has a very clear and quite dry definition of what this is. So I'm just going to quote it for you. According to the Oxford Dictionary, communication is the process by which messages or information is sent from one place or person to another, or the message itself. Right, that's pretty clear. So what do we have here? We have process, we have message, we have information, we have placement, and we have people. And we're going to look into all those parts later in this course. Also, when we're talking about the actual term communication, I want to invite you to think that when you have communicated something, it is because the other person that you're talking to has understood the message that you sent them in the exact same way as you intended. And in order to know that, you need to check that. Communication hasn't taken place until the recipient of a message understands what you are trying to say. And in that process, we kind of have three big central chunks that are in play. We have the sender of the information, we have the recipient of the information, and we have the journey that the information is making. And that is something that we can call filters or noise. I'm going to keep calling that filters for the remaining of this course. If you want to tell somebody about a red balloon, you are using the words red balloon, and the other person is receiving the words red balloon. Now, in order for that person to understand what you're talking about, they need to know the concept red balloon, and they need to have this mental image in their mind what a red balloon looks like. Obviously, that is an incredibly simplified way to explain that process. But the point is, if somebody doesn't have a concept beforehand about something that you are trying to tell them, they are going to have a hard time understanding what you're trying to say. And this is where filters come in. And this is why filters are making this process so incredibly difficult. Another factor that is heavily influencing your communication is that the message that you're sending is coming from three different sources. It is coming from your words, obviously, but it is also coming from your body, which includes your face and your eyes and your gaze. And it is coming from your tonation and your tone of voice and how you are saying things. Now, various research results show slightly different numbers in this equation as to which one is how important, but without a doubt, the most important thing among these three is your body language. And the second most important thing is the tonation of your voice and how you say things. And the third most important, so the least important thing in this equation is actually the words that you use. Less than 10% of the message that we are sending are perceived by others through the words that we use. What other people pick up in conversation with you is your body language and the way you say things, your tonation. Now, you may have heard those statistics before, but how conscious are you about what your body looks like and what your face looks like and how your voice sounds when you speak? Are you using that knowledge? So we're going to start talking about that tomorrow in the second lesson. We're going to go deeper into the three ways that we communicate: with our words, with our body, and with the tone of our voice. And we're also going to take a closer look at filters. What are they and how do they affect how we show up in our communication with others? But before we go, I am going to give you a little piece of homework. Now, don't worry, it's not something that takes a lot of time and energy, but I just want you to start paying attention to what is going on around you. Be a little bit aware of conversations going on around you. And try to pay attention to what kind of words are used, what kind of body language is used, and what kind of tone of voice is used in those conversations. And also pay a little bit attention to yourself, and especially how you feel in various situations with various people that you communicate with on a daily basis. Right? That's a wrap up for today, and I'll see you tomorrow.